Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm gonna present information from the Galactic Heritage card deck, which is this one right here. This goes down a very deep rabbit hole, so I'm gonna give you the introduction on this video, and I already pulled the first two cards, which is gonna be after this video. So if you're interested, go ahead and go to that one as well. So I'm gonna bring an introduction so you can have more or less information, more or less. You can edit, right? You're gonna have what's that wording, man? There's a lot of comical stuff right now.
More or less
An intake,
a background
on what I'm gonna present moving forward. Okay, so it says Galactic Heritage cards. Alright. Introduction to the Galactic card material from Germain. The issue of galactic heritage is so vast. Even just the detailed history of Earth is extensive. Imagine how extensive galactic history is. There's no way that everything can be covered. Instead, we choose the strongest archetypal energies that play out in your galactic family. Most specifically, how do those energies matter to Earth? There are many dramas going on in here in the Earth, in the stars. If they are not relevant to Earth, we usually don't speak of them, simply to keep all the information manageable. What we share with you here is relevant to you on Earth in this lifetime now. We often present the information about Earth galactic heritage in a linear way, like a story. But this time we won't present it that way. In working with the cards, the story part of the information isn't important. The attributes of the star civilizations are more important. What are their characteristics and deepest lessons? How have these lessons affect Earth? Don't worry about memorizing any of this information. If you have read Lisa's first book, The Prisms of Lyria, first edition published by Royal Priest Research, second edition published by Light Technology, you may know some of the information already. If you have not read the book, do not be concerned. First, let us present an overview. Why does this matter? Okay, why does this matter? Imagine a circle. This represents all consciousness in a unified state. In drawing or imagining a circle, it has a boundary. In truth, there is no boundary. All consciousness in a unified state is limitless. Without going into philosophical reasons why separation happens, because we have spoken about that many times before, we will simply say that there was a desire for the unified field of consciousness to experience separation. The analogy we have been using for decades now is a useful one. Imagine a disco ball or a mirror ball like those that hang in your nightclubs. It is like a spherical mirror with many cracks. To continue with the analogy, let's say that this consciousness that was once unified made its first fragmentation in order to experience separation so it could learn about itself. Eventually, it moved so far away from unity that it totally forgot about being part of a whole. This fragmented consciousness went into a state of forgetfulness. The goal then became one of remembering who you really are, a unified consciousness. That is the process of spiritual awakening, basically. There you have an expression of polarity. First, you are in unity, and then you move far into deep separation. Eventually, you move back to unity. Remember, what we are talking about is symbolic. This unified consciousness fragmented like the shards and the mirror ball. Speaking symbolically, it fragmented first into big species. These big pieces were still identifying themselves as groups, we, rather than I. The first fragmentation from the whole became the first group that shaped the journey taken by our whole galactic family. We will examine these fragments in the information below. We have offered a simplified version. Much more can be found in the Prism of Lyria and various CDs available more deeply and profoundly. These first fragments of the whole have gone by many names, depending on who is talking about them. Our label for them is founders. Founders are the archetypes. They are ones who build the blueprint for your journey into separation and your journey back into reunification. The founders are represented in the cards. They are part of the fabric of the whole galactic family. Each and every one of you is connected to them. For some people, you may feel the connection strongly. For others, you might not be aware of it, and that is okay. If you've seen a copy of the Prism of Lyria First Edition, the ET being on the cover is one artistic representation of the founders. Most people who have experiences with founders find they show themselves as very tall, light beings. Sometimes they have big eyes or you can't see any features. Very often they are seen as having long, thin limbs, very graceful. They can appear in many forms, but those are the common forms. They represent the first fragmentation. There are other beings representative of the first fragmentation. Some of them are really not relevant to Earth, but there is one consciousness that we wish to mention here. It is relevant to Earth, but in an esoteric way because it provides a contrast to help you see yourselves more clearly. It is the consciousness of Andromeda. Andromeda is very difficult to describe because it is a paradox. Even though human words can label some of their characteristics, the nature of their consciousness cannot be labeled. Please know that we are not talking about physical beings from Andromeda. As you know, Andromeda is another galaxy. We are speaking about a type of consciousness. This is a very different from what you might call Milky Way consciousness, which is your galaxy. So what is the fundamental energy in Andromeda consciousness? The best way to describe it is to use analogies and metaphors. Imagine that a human is walking down the street. He walks to the bus station every day. Every day he passes the same person sweeping the sidewalk, the same shops. The bus comes at the same time. That is human reality. Let us give you an example of Andromedan reality. The person is moving through her reality, perhaps walking down the street, but there is no consistency. The reality continually changes. Some of you might think of this as being like a drug trip. The person walks down the street and the buildings change into trees. People change into animals. This is a simplistic example, but it is really the only way to describe it. This means that if you are working with Andromedan consciousness, you have to have a strong inner sense of groundedness. When everything around you changes, you still stay centered. You don't experience disorientation or confusion. One of the reasons your Earth reality is so stable is because you are on a planet with gravity in a space-time continuum. If you were to go out into deep space, you would have none of these things to ground you. The only thing you could have is your inner sense of consciousness. When humans eventually experience space travel, you will need to rely on that inner sense. You will also interface more with Andromedan energy. It is very abstract, but it represents to you an opposite of how you interact with reality. That is why it is represented in the cards. There are some people on your world who are very connected with Andromedan energy. They tend to be artists or sacred geometrists or metaphysicians. Thank you, Spirit. Like what? This is an important balance for Earth. Earth needs people who can go beyond the limitations of physical reality while still being human beings. Going back to the idea of the fragmentation, you then have the founders and Andromedan consciousness represented. Now there is another fragmentation. The pieces get smaller. Even though they get smaller, they still have the essence of group energy. Now we move into another energy that is of significance to Earth. We call it Arcturus consciousness. Many people ask, are you talking about the stars, Arcturus? We are not speaking of only the physical star. We are speaking of the higher energy that the stars represent. If you did a meditation looking at the star Arcturus, you could indeed tap into the energy we speak of. But if you flew in a spaceship over the Arcturus and looked for people, that is not what we are speaking about. We are speaking about archetypal energy. The Arcturus energy has a very significant importance to Earth. It is so important that it is hard to describe. This consciousness ultimately acts as the main spirit guides of Earth. So Earth has spirit guides. That's interesting. If you go back into the ancient history of Earth, long before humans were here, the first beings who walked this planet were Arcturus beings that solidified their light bodies. They are a very high level of consciousness. This Arcturus consciousness did the same thing on many other worlds as well. By solidifying their light bodies into temporary physical bodies on the planet, they could begin to create a blueprint for the specific planet they were visiting. So from the very beginning of your planet, long before any physical ETs ever visited, the Arcturus consciousness created the blueprint for Earth. It is a blueprint of balance and of the integration of polarity. This means that no matter what happens on Earth, no matter what kind of darkness plays out here, and no matter what the challenges, the blueprint always remains about the integration of polarity. You will automatically always play out that blueprint and things will move to balance. It just may not look that way on the surface. So how do humans interact with the Arcturus energy? For the most part, humans experience the Arcturus energy during two most important times of their lives, birth and death. When a human is born, he is cradled in a bath of Arcturus energy. This infuses a new baby with the earth blueprint. It soothes the soul being born, because the soul was coming from a unified realm into one of separation. The same is true with death. The Arcturus energy awaits the person who is dying like someone waiting for you with arms open to give you a hug. It is very healing. That Arcturus energy helps the person process the experiences of life and learn the lessons they need to learn. During life, humans who work with healing, such as those who do hands-on healing, are channeling this very high-level consciousness of Arcturus. You could also say that the energy of your higher self is an Arcturus frequency. You really cannot escape the Arcturus energy. It is so integrated with the experience of being human. It represents your higher potential. That is why it is representative of the early fragmentations. because it is a group consciousness. Now let us move to civilizations that have experienced physical incarnation. Imagine that the previously unified consciousness experiences superfragmentation. With intense fragmentation, you begin to have the experience of individual souls or soul units that incarnate into different time streams. Remember, all of your lives are happening simultaneously. Once you have this level of fragmentation, you have incarnation. We will talk about the archetypal civilizations that are most important for Earth. These are the civilizations represented in the cards. In the book of Prism of Lyria, the word Lyria is the title because Lyria was really where the first incarnational cycle began. We are speaking about the specific stars in the Lyrian constellation. Are we speaking about the specific stars in the Lyrian constellation? Yes and no. The Lyrian civilization at its inception and at the highest of its existence was billions of years ago. Some of those stars don't exist any longer. If we simply say in the direction of Lyria, please let that be sufficient. So Lyria, we're going to talk about Lyria. Lyra. I said that wrong. Lyra. Lyra is represented in the cards. They are a lot of cards. This is because for the most part, probably 99% of you have had lifetimes in Lyra. It was the first expression of incarnation. Many of the lessons that Lyrans experience are still being learned on Earth. Let that sink in for a minute. Oh, damn. Many of those lessons, The Lyra civilization was, in a way, very similar to Earth, but their challenges extended into space. Once they achieved space travel, they began colonizing. That presents a whole lot of challenges and karmic lessons. We are not going to go into what those karmic lessons are because it will come out in the cards. Lyrans in general represented an expression of pioneering spirit. They went out into the universe to colonize and explore and expand. If you look at the human spirit, there are a lot of Lyran qualities. But within these ancient Lyran colonies, there was another movement growing. Groups of people who were not interested in external exploration. They were more interested in internal exploration. These people had a natural memory of being whole before the fragmentation. They wanted to return there. They didn't know how, but this is what drove them. Some of these groups began colonizing the direction of the star Vega, Vega. Vega is a star within the Lyran system. These people established their own civilization, which was very much focused inwards. They did a lot of spiritual exploration, meditation, spiritual practices, all for the purpose of returning to Source. You can see now that the first expression of polarity began here in physical reality. The Lyrans were externally focused, and the Vegans were very internally focused. Once you have this type of polarity, conflict can start to happen. There were many wars between Lyrans and Vegans in the ancient past. Within the cards, some of the most significant lessons of both the Lyrans and Vegans are included. Just as a note, Vegan mysticism made a huge impact in your galactic family. Vegan mysticism spread to other civilizations and also eventually came to Earth. You can still see roots of it in different spiritual practices on Earth, in practices of nature, worshiping, and certain meditation practices. Then we have one specific civilization that was originally vegan. They were very similar to your Earth. There was conflict on the planet. Unfortunately, They lost the touch with their spirituality, got very distracted by technology, and ignored the need of their planet. Does it sound familiar? The planet became very toxic. Unfortunately, the potential exists right now for your planet to take the same path. This particular planet has a very strong connection to Earth. To make a very long story short, this planet went into crisis. Their birth rate was dropping because of the toxicity. They were becoming sterile. Their planet became so toxic that they had to live underground. Their bodies began to change because of it. They tried to fix the situation by genetic engineering, such as by removing emotional expression. If you haven't guessed, we call this civilization Zeta Reticuli, or Zetas. Many people call them grays, but we do not use the term because of the disinformation surrounding it. The story of the Zetas is written in the book Visitors from Within.
I'm chilling. I'm closing my eyes here and there, but I'm here.
It is difficult for us to tell you the whole story of the Zetas in a short time. Many people attribute the abductions to these beings, in which humans claim to have been taken and DNA samples extracted. This was for the purpose of saving their species. Eventually, it was a success. The DNA that saved their species was actually human. These beings are not negative. They are not the ones people talk about sometimes inaccurately as doing terrible things. Some of that information is disinformation. This was a species in crisis. Through the willingness of souls on earth, you were able to help them. They are strongly represented in the cards in the deck. The relationship between humans and Zetas is profound. Quite simply, you have helped each other evolve as species. Returning to Vega, many groups colonized beyond the Vegan system. The area that is now called Orion was one of those places where colonization from Vega and Lyra happened. What happened in Orion was very dramatic. Many of you know the story. What happened in Orion stays in Orion. This was a place of deepest polarity that your galactic family has ever experienced. A simplistic way of explaining it is as follows. First, there was a dominating force, which we can call the Aryan Empire. Think of it as 1,000 times more repressive than communism. The empire represented the people. The repression was so bad that there was even energetic repression. Damn. Because Vegan mysticism was brought to Orion, they had a lot of spiritual practices. The empire found a way to create an energetic net. This energetic net went around the Orion planets and kept souls in. So when people died, they would have to enter the reincarnational cycle only within Orion. They could not leave. Because of this intense repression, there was resistance that formed. So now you have three different aspects: the empire, the people who were being repressed, and the resistance. The closest translation of this resistance group would be the words Black League. Black means hidden. If you look at a popular culture on Earth right now, the closest analogy we can give is the Star Wars movie. You have an empire and a Jedi were like the Black League. The repression and the cycle of resistance went on for a very long time. The whole story of Orion would take many hours. This is a short version. Eventually, the Aryan civilization experienced an awakening. It was through the birth of what we can call an Aryan Christ that began the process of integration. They eventually awakened rapidly. However, during some of these dark times, a myth began to emerge. This myth was about a place called Earth where people were free, or at least freer than they imagined they were. Sometimes the Aryan priests who were involved with the resistance could open holes in the net. When that happened, souls would escape and enter the reincarnational cycle of Earth. Earth became a place where the Aryan energy also had to be healed. That drama was brought here. This is why in the cards you will see many Aryan cards, because Aryan spiritual awakening is very tied to Earth. Even though Aryan already had its awakening, it hasn't yet happened on Earth. The Aryan drama became part of the karmic energy of Earth, and it is still in the process of finishing up the final healing of the polarities from Aryan. Let us now move into the Pleiades. Which is another extremely significant civilization connected to Earth. The short story is that in ancient days, a group from Lyra wanted to escape the conflicts in the Lyran system. They colonized Earth. This was in ancient times when humans were still primitive. This particular colony settled in what is now northern Europe. Northern Europe. They lived for many generations. However, they had a little bit of trouble adapting to Earth environment. So they took a bit of DNA from primitive man and incorporated it within themselves. This helped them adapt to the atmosphere and gravitational and magnetic fields. Once they made these alterations, which were very slight, they really settled there. This was their home. They had children, they built their lives there. But then the wars going on in the heavens came to this solar system, and finally they came to Earth. This group was devoted to peace. We can call them Earth Lyrans. They could not stay on Earth during the wars. It was a very hard decision for them. Eventually, they left. They went looking for another home. Eventually, they settled in the area of Pleiades. Then they became Pleiadians. Let's take a look at their genetic line. They were Lyran with Earth DNA. This is how the Pleiadians started to build their connection with Earth. Pleiadians have two genetic lines primarily. One is Earth Lyran DNA, and one is pure Lyran DNA. Since those ancient times, Earth has called to the Pleiadians. Throughout history, Pleiadians have integrated with Earth. They really are your cousins. You will see many Pleiadians cards in the deck. So many of their lessons are yours as a species as well. Now we move to Sirius. Sirius also has a very strong connection to Earth. Primarily, the original Sirius colonies came from Vega. As you know, Sirius is very close to your solar system. So there has been a lot of interaction between Sirians and Earth. In ancient days, the Sirians made an alliance with the Pleiadians. They often worked together. The most significant time of Sirian interaction on Earth was during the time of the genetic projects on Earth. This is the time when your ET forefathers were improving the human race by inserting extraterrestrial DNA. The Sirians were the master genetics. Whenever you have an ET civilization, such as the Pleiadians or the Sirians, and they work so closely with uplifting a primitive planet, karmic lessons happen for those ET species. You will see in the cards that there are Syrian cards that have to do with the healing some of these karmic lessons from the past, especially during the time of the genetic projects. This is because this is the most significant time of growth and lessons for the ET civilization working with the development of the human species. Remember, so many of you were them. You still carry their lessons within you. Now we move to Earth. Yes, Earth. Earth is represented in the cards. There really are not any pure Earth beings in your world. All the DNA that became dominant DNA on your planet came from your forefathers. So when Earth is represented in the cards, it isn't so much referring to Earth as a separate species. It has more to do with the karmic lessons of your species throughout time. What karmic lessons from Earth lifetimes are you carrying? Are you going to find that some of those most archetypal and common lessons will show up in the cards? Up until now, we have been talking about the fragmentation. The journey has been from unity to polarity and then back to unity. So the question becomes, where are you now in this cycle? The good news is that you are on the journey back to unity. As a galactic species, you have already passed through the deepest, darkest polarity. You are now moving towards reintegration. What this means is that you start reintegration back into a matrix of group consciousness. The metaphor is that you and your individual lives are now recognizing that you are more than the body and more than this life as a human. Maybe you have done some past life regression. Maybe you've done some channeling work. Whatever you're doing, you are integrating what were once separate parts of yourself back into the whole of you. So you are becoming more whole. You are becoming more multidimensional. You are starting to recognize the past, the present, and future are really just illusions. As these things are happening, it lessens the fragmentation. You embrace more and more of your parts. This is being reflected in the cycle of galactic integration. It is going to be reflected in the cards. The first group consciousness represented in the cards is the association of worlds. Some of you may have heard the channeled entity Bashar through channel Daryl Anka talk about this. The association of words is a fellowship that is a group of like minds and like hearts. They are a group of extraterrestrial species who work together for the upliftment of humankind. For instance, if you were to have a contact experience and you met a group of beings who were different species, it would indicate that you were meeting with a group of association beings. These beings have a bird-eye view of your planet and its needs. Most of them have already healed the karmic lessons. So this is why they don't often openly interfere in Earth activities. Through their own growth and evolution, they recognize that what they can and cannot do. They have to honor the wishes of the planet that they are working with. The association is represented in the cards. One reason for this is that we are more frequently speaking to humans who are actively connecting with their future selves. Just as Lisa connects with Sasha, the Pleiadian future self that she channels. Many of you are also connecting with your future selves. More often than not, those future selves are part of the association of worlds. The association, thus, had to be represented in the cards. They are a very strong symbol for integration. Now let us return to the Zeta Reticuli. Earlier, we mentioned how your planet and your DNA have helped to heal them. Through your interactions with the Zetas, a new hybrid species was created. This hybrid species became an amazing, beautiful civilization. They have the best of both of you within them. Many of you know who this civilization is. It is the civilization of Esesani. This is the civilization from which Bashar originates. Any of you who have had interactions with Bashar can feel what a high level of consciousness he and his people have. If you look at the Zetas and their journey from Vega into polarity, into toxicity and fear, and then ultimately joining their DNA with another species and becoming the Esesani, you can see how incredibly profound this is. Also, you can see that this journey we have taken from unity to polarity is moving back towards unity. The Esesani are therefore represented in the cards. They truly represent a future for your species and the Zetas. That can give you hope. Finally, we return to Orion. We mentioned how the Orions eventually experienced an awakening. Their awakening was quite profound. In a laboratory, if you have two chemicals that react quite strongly together, they can cause an explosion. But after the meeting of the two opposites, the chemicals, a third idea can be created. This third idea can be very stable. It becomes a transformed version of two unstables or polarized aspects. Similarly, Orion was that meeting of two very strong opposites. Whenever you have strong polarity like that, the meaning can be like fusion, a big explosion. But then a third idea is created. Energetically, this is what happened with Orion. When their awakening happened, it happened dramatically. You might say that ascension happened quickly. Literally, the Orion consciousness transformed itself from polarity into absolute unity and the radiation of universe consciousness. We call this the Orion light. The Orion light simply means that transformed energy of polarity. This energy is a guiding force for your Earth. You on Earth are playing out and finishing the Orion karma. To have this Orion light guiding you, almost like a magnet that draws you to it, will ensure that you will integrate these polarities and make your transformation. Therefore, the Orion light is represented in the cards because, in a sense, it is like the fabric that is starting to hold all of you together. It is like the threads of the tapestry. It gathers all the parts home. You will also find in the cards that there are miscellaneous species. Obviously, we could not include every single species that has ever integrated with Earth. We have instead chosen representatives of different species as miscellaneous pieces of your galactic tapestry. We won't review those miscellaneous species here. They will be nice surprise when you pull them from the deck. They all have their little lessons associated with them as well. Okay. Okay, so from there on, I made this video so we could start pulling the cards and you could have a more broader understanding of when moving forward, when I do the readings on Galactic Heritage. Well, if you're new to the channel, go to what I just read, right? And then go to the videos. So this will be the introduction. And when you see the videos and you haven't seen the introduction, it's not going to make too much sense. So this is why I took my time to introduce this information. So when you see me pull out the Galactic card deck, go to this video first, and then whatever resonates with you, then you take it, right? Whatever resonates, at least you know where it's coming from, right? Because if you pull the cards, if I pull the cards in a random way and you don't have the information of this order or whatever information is here, you're not gonna really understand. You might not, but it's just a broader understanding. All right, so thank you for this time. I appreciate you guys staying. If you stayed until the end, I appreciate you so much. It is very interesting. So that's it for today. Thank you.